Hi, welcome to Astrobabble. I'm Donna from Donna B Astrology.
And I'm Linda from Scullywag Astrology.
Today we're going to be talking about annual perfections, which is one of the Time Lord techniques that you can use on timing. Remember, a while ago I had said you can't, get married, be a president, give birth, learn how to walk, graduate college all in, 1 year. Most people don't. So this is one of them, and I try to look at things three different ways if something's going to happen. So this is one of the things that I do look at. And more
Yeah.
specifically on annual perfections, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, every year we have a different house is emphasized, and the Lord of that house will be the Lord of the year. I'm going to share screen because it will be a little bit easier to see this way. And what me and Donna are going to do, we're going to show you Elvis's annual perfections. So yes, so Donna has mostly done all the research for Elvis and his annual perfections. But first, I'll explain a little bit about what they are. So there's 12 houses in a natal chart, and each house represents a different topic. So if you can see on video, the first house is all about you, your appearance, your health, your vitality, your personality, and how you dawn on others. Your second house is your finances and possessions, your self-esteem. Actually, that's a little bit modern, but yeah, it's your income and possessions, your resources. Third house is siblings, transportation, communications, early education, local area. Do you want to do some
I'll
of
do
these
the
here?
fourth house. It represents your family, parents, home, real estate, homeland, and heritage.
Mm-hmm.
And then your fifth house is children, creative aspects in your artistic pursuits, as well as hobbies, romance, sports, and what you enjoy. The sixth house has to do with illness, pets, coworkers, and those that work for you or volunteer work.
Seventh house is business and romantic partners or very close friends. It's also open enemies. And you can do 8.
And the eighth house is shared finances and resources, death, taxes, insurance, inheritance, and loans.
And the 9th house is long distance travel, foreigners, religion, beliefs, higher education, the law, and also publishing.
The 10th house will have to do with your career, public reputation, fame, infamy, honors, and rewards.
And the 11th house is groups, friends, organizations, hopes and dreams, and networking or your allies.
And then finishing off, the 12th house will be having to do with hidden and secret matters and your own undoing, addictions, mental health issues.
Yeah, and places of seclusion. And this isn't an exhaustive list. This is just a quick, fast and easy list up there to give you a general idea of what might happen. But over here, we start out with the first house being for our first year of life. And then the second house will be for the second year of life. But because from the day you're born, you don't actually have that first birthday until after you've been around for a year. So even though we're saying it's your second year of life, you're actually 1. So, but basically every 12 years or a multiple of 12, you'll be in a first house year. So when you're 12, when you're 24, when you're 36, when you're 48, 60, 72, 84, and then I suppose if you're lucky enough to make 96. And anyway, every year you progress to a different house. And if you know your natal chart, so for example, I'm a Capricorn ascendant. So my first house, if I'm in a first house here, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. So Saturn is the Lord of the year. So transits to my natal Saturn or transiting Saturn, just whatever Saturn is doing at the time, making an impact on my chart are going to be more significant. And I find, especially with, say, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, stationary points can be really, really significant because that planet is standing really, really still for that time. And any planets in that house will also be significant. So I don't have anything in my first house, but say, for example, my third house, it's in Pisces. So Jupiter is the ruler because we use traditional rulers. So it's not Neptune, which would be for modern astrology. We use Jupiter for Pisces, and I've got Mercury in there. So Mercury would be significant when I'm in third house years. And so will Jupiter, because Jupiter is the Lord of the year, which I always think sounds so, it sounds kind of cool saying Lord of the year.
It does give it importance, that's for sure, because it is a planet that you have to look at all year. And I think it has that. It does give you that importance for sure. So it starts on your ascendant at your time of birth is going to be represented by that first house.
Yeah.
And that's important because all of these timing techniques don't work if you don't have an accurate birth time.
Yeah.
It's almost, my son-in-law just told us that his birth time has changed, and I feel like I don't even know him anymore. No, I do. But yeah, it is important because that first house is at that time of birth, not the day of birth, at the time of birth. So
yeah. Well, I mean, day of birth is important too. Yeah. We need date, time, and place. But yeah, if you don't have that time, we don't know, we can't tell where the ascendant is. We can't define any of the houses. So
right. Yeah, we can't define the houses. I think that's the important part of it.
Yeah. So yeah, very interesting. And I think there was something else. Oh, and we're not going to go into it here, but you can also divide these 12 months in a year. So you can divide this down into monthly returns. This kind of starts at your birthday. You know, when you turn, say, let's have a look up here. When you turn, just say you're turning 45, it would be a 10th house year. It happens when you turn 45, not January that year or whatever. If you're born, say, May 2nd or something, it happens then. And in fact, I personally would look at your actual solar return, which can sometimes be a day or two off. But yeah, it starts for your birthday, goes for the whole year. So if you're born in May, when you come along a month later, say June 2nd, you would be in a 11th house sub period. And then July 2nd, you'd be in a 12th house sub period. The Lord of the Year is still king, but this is kind of like something else that's just kind of flavoring that annual perfection for that month. But we won't get too much into that because it does get very involved. But that's just a general overview. And now we're going to have a look at some of Elvis's charts.
So you can not only look at a whole year with using this technique, but you can also look at a month. Like I'm going to get married next June. I could get my date and then the year of it, and then count from my birthday to June and see what that month is going to look like.
Yeah. As we were saying, if your Gemini or Virgo is the house that's being emphasized that year, if Mercury is the Lord of your year, we'll be looking at transits of Mercury. But if you have Sun or Moon as the Lord of the year, because they both move so quick, and the Moon particularly so, what seems to really kind of add a kind of special emphasis is the full moons and new moons, but eclipses as well. I don't pay that much attention to new and full moons unless they're falling on a natal planet or chart point. But those eclipses can be really quite uncanny, I find. So yeah, that's something to look at too.
All right.
This is just Elvis's natal chart.
Okay, so let's see. What can we see about his natal chart? Anything?
I think it's really interesting that his ascendant is at 12 degrees of Sagittarius.
Yeah, the ascendant. It's exactly the the Sibley chart ascendant. It is that. Yeah, and the moon is in the 4th house, which means his mom plays a big role in his life, I would think.
Yeah, and I mean it's in Pisces too, so it's an emotional moon. It's not an Aries moon. It's not rough and tumble. It's a bit of a mama's boy.
Yes.
Very sweet. But yeah, he's a Capricorn sun. He's got Mercury very close to that sun, so it's under the beams, and so is that Venus, which means that, perhaps he didn't feel heard sometimes, which is kind of strange to think of somebody with such worldwide acclaim and fame. And yeah, with that Venus, might have had some issues with relationships.
Yeah.
Got that Neptune way up on the 10th, in the 10th house.
Yeah.
He certainly became iconic.
Yeah. And Pluto in the 8th house is known for exaggerating or making things big.
Yeah, that's a point. Yeah, I mean, there's supposedly people that still think he might be alive. He's faked his death too. So actually that fits with Neptune in the 10th. But I'm just looking at that Jupiter too in the 12th house of your undoing. Too much excess.
Yeah. All right. Are we ready to look and see how his life basically timed out? We're applying it to his life, but you can get this to apply to your life. Not this particular chart, you have to use your own, because each chart has their own natal promise. So this first chart that Linda brought up it's a 12th house perfection year, where his mom gave him his first guitar.
And just for I suppose, just to make clear, the outside chart that I've put here, I've set a chart, what's called a solar return. So it's for when the sun comes back to where it was at the time, date, and place of his birth. So that's why we say many happy returns for somebody's birthday, because the sun's returned to where it was. So there's solar returns, and this is something that we look at too with annual perfection sometimes, because we're looking to see where the Lord of the Year is in the chart and other things. But yeah, so this was his 11th birthday. So like Donna said, 12th house year, and yeah, first guitar.
Yeah, and the moon right there is in the 7th house from his mother. Well, it's actually on the 4th house.
Yeah, so 4th house of the natal chart.
And again, you have that Mars on that Pluto in that 8th house. It's a signature that I've seen. If you watch throughout his life, that Pluto does have a very significant aspect to his all of his life.
Yeah. Mars and Pluto, quite significant, and the moon as well. Yeah.
Very transformative. All right. So this would be the 11th year. This is when he was very young. So just starting out, but it still shows a lot. He's got Mercury, in his first house.
Yeah.
So
what was this? So Mars was Lord of the Year. And as Donna said, Mars is on that Pluto, which is the most striking thing in this chart at the time.
So he graduated high school in 1953. Failed music.
Oh, really?
He did. But a year after that, that's all right. Yeah, he was fine with that. That worked out for him. The Pluto's being aspected again with the nodes. It's in opposition to his nodes, though. Well,
yeah. The eclipses, or we can tell by where the nodes are, the eclipses were happening over his 2nd and 8th house. So his personal finances and income and other people's money. So that's what was happening at that time. 8th house. So we've got Cancer here. So the moon is the Lord of the Year. And we find the Lord of the Year moon right here on Saturn, which is in Aquarius, the sign that it rules. So it's a strong Saturn. That Lord of the Year, it's kind of placing a bit of an emphasis on that 3rd house. And it's in the 7th house of the solar return chart. But interesting. Probably met some contacts and maybe, met the right person, able to get, because recorded a single or something at Sun Records or something, wasn't it?
Sun Records is where he launched his career through. Yep.
Yeah, a lot of activity in the solar return chart. It's in the sixth house of work, but in his second house of finances. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then when he released Heartbreak Hotel, sold 1 million records. That would be a 10th house perfection year.
Yeah.
And there's where we got the photos from, is the biography website that we have there. So being a 10th house year, Jupiter is opposing the moon.
Yeah.
In the Lot of Fortune. The Mercury is the ruler of the year, and it's in the third house. So third house has a lot to do with the community as well.
In the solar return, it's actually the second house. So this is another way that we kind of look like we know that it's the third house, but by putting the solar return on the outside, we can see what house is rising on the ascendant. So we can see 12th house here. So, maybe could even be maybe already starting some self-destructive habits, perhaps, I don't know. But we look to also where the ascendant is, and the ascendant's in that second house. And you can see the sun is really close to that ascendant. First and the 10th house are very, very visible houses. So, yeah, this is his son's on the ascendant for that year. It's like, look at me,
Yeah.
And it's in the second house of his natal chart. So money there. 10th house here. So Mercury, like you said, it's here in the third house of the natal chart, but second house of the solar return. So again, you've kind of got that second house emphasis being brought in.
Yes. Yeah. All that kind of, it all ties in. Whatever one planet, if there's one planet that's aspecting or important in that particular year, no matter what house it hits or what house it rules, it's going to have an effect in some way.
Yeah. And I mean, like Donna said, this Jupiter up here in the 10th house of the natal chart, in the 9th of the solar return. I mean, I assume maybe even worldwide kind of fame at this time. Yeah. I know, like my parents liked him. I mean, I liked him too, but he was big when they were younger,
Yes.
But that Jupiter rules his first. So here's a planet that rules his first way up here in the very visible 10th. He's getting a lot of attention at this time.
Yes, he is. I know he's one of my mom's favorites too.
And all these, you kind of, if you notice a whole heap of planets in one of the charts too, that can be interesting as well. You can see all these planets here in Scorpio at the time. It's in the 11th house of hopes and dreams of the solar return for that year. And it's got the MC there. The MC is in the 11th of the audience, because the 11th can be the audience as well.
Or people that help him.
Yeah, true.
Your friends and alliances.
Yeah, the eclipses are happening over the 1st and the 7th. Is this when I think you were saying he met Colonel Tom Parker about this time?
Yes. He met Colonel Tom Parker in March 24th of 1956.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, probably the eclipse is happening over here at the time, over the 1st and 7th. And the 7th is, business partnerships, romantic relationships, and just one-on-one relationships, which they certainly had a very close relationship.
Yes.
And the first appearance on Ed Sullivan, also a 10th house year.
Yeah, it was the same year. So Mercury is going to be in the important planet. It's sitting right next to Chiron. And you'll find out why it's sitting right next to Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healer. So something was wrong with that performance that the world spoke up about at the end. Shockingly, Uranus is right on the south node, which is another little hint.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So anything that when these planets seem to line up gives you a little bit more importance, of them because, well, they're lining up to his birth chart. So they're saying, hey, you know,
Mhm.
exclamation point this. So
Yeah.
yeah. So he was hung in effigy in Memphis and St. Louis after the second appearance of the Ed Sullivan Show. And he did make a third. So for this one would have moved him to the 11th house, and that is Libra.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I mean, this is January 6th, 1957. Was January 6th the date of the second time that he appeared?
No, the January 6th was the third time that he had appeared, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was just thinking it was so close to his birthday. So it would have been really close because what we've done, or what I've done, is set the solar return chart for the 7th of January, which was when his solar return was. He was that close to his birthday. We thought we'd have a look for the other year.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, 11th house, because we've got Mars in the 11th house, that's going to be important, as well as the part of fortune. But as it's Libra in the 11th house, that's the house, we want to look for Venus as well because she's Lord of the Year. Should we be calling her Lady of the Year? It doesn't sound as impressive, does it?
No, she can be the Lord of the Year. Yeah. And because he's a night chart with the sun below the horizon, Saturn is his most malefic planet. And that is in his ascendant, or that's in the first house right now. So this is when when the censors censored him, so where he could only be recorded or videotaped from the waist up. That was the Pluto transformational kind of thing I was focused on.
Yeah, and I mean that's Saturn right on his ascendant. It's like his literal appearance and vitality.
Was
What he's
constricted.
Mm. So yeah, so we've got Venus also in the first house. What's Mars doing? Mars is Mars is opposite Mars.
Yeah, no, he's got Jupiter opposing the Mars and the Moon in his
Wow.
house of creativity. So
Mm.
there's an issue there for sure.
He was too much, Donna.
He was too much.
It's a very Jupiter thing being too much.
It is.
And interesting that we've got this Mercury almost at the same degree as his natal Mercury, but it's actually retrograde at this time, and it's direct in his
natal chart. Yeah.
Yeah. And we've got the MC here, so his career.
Yeah, because the MC usually it's at the top of the chart, but just because we're turning the chart, it's slower. Normally you would see the MC at the top of the chart.
Yeah.
It signifies the midheaven.
Yeah. The ascendant for the solar return that year was actually in the 6th. So again, Venus again.
So 6th house being the house illness or what you do daily.
So the ascendant there, you got the 8th house rising. But yeah, interesting that you've got, why were we looking at Mercury? Just said it returned, yeah. Oh. And that Mercury's close to that MC.
Yeah.
Because we also want to kind of pay attention if we've got close contacts to other planets as well.
Right. So in 1958, he wasn't drafted. I believe he enlisted into the U.S. Army. And that is signified by the 6th house. The Army and service of nations or service of other people. Doctors are from that house as well. So yeah, it definitely shows that he was in there. And then the North Node is in the house of, the 12th house. So it's a lot of disappearing, or he didn't really escape. He's just not so much in view with his career.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the solar return chart, that's the 10th house is, you know, sitting on his 6th house. So you were talking about 6th house being, you know, military. And for this year, that's lined up with his 10th house of career. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
He's got 5th house rising that year, so I'm sure he had plenty of fun. What did we say? 12th house. I thought that was interesting too, because 12th house is exile, but it's also foreign countries. And I believe he went to Germany.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And also Mars, because Mars is the Lord of the year, because it rules Scorpio traditionally. And you've got Mars right on his ascendant. And Mars is associated with soldiers. So Mars on his ascendant, which is him and his appearance, he's the soldier this year.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And because Jupiter's also in the 12th house, we want to see where Jupiter is. Jupiter's here in the 11th house of the natal, 3rd house of the solar return, sitting on that part of fortune. So maybe he didn't have as much, maybe he was kind of drafted.
Maybe he was kind of drafted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm beginning to be curious, because the part of fortune is not something that you have a lot of agency over. It's what happens to you bodily and beyond your beyond what you have control of. That's what the part of fortune usually represents. For
yeah.
So yeah, and the part of fortune was even used back in the Bible. So they used it as a chance kind of a point in your natal chart.
I thought this was interesting too. Moon opposite Venus, yes, in the 7th and 1st. When did he meet Priscilla?
This is the year that his mother died.
So
that might have had something to do with that. Yeah,
because you've got Chiron on there as well.
Chiron, and Elvis was drafted. He was drafted.
Oh, he was drafted? Oh, okay. So yeah, he didn't have any choice in it. Interesting.
Yeah, and with the moon opposite that. With his mom.
And we've got the solar return IC, which is our home. It's in the 12th. It's over there. It's far away. It's overseas.
Not in my community. Yeah, which is very interesting. It's just amazing that how this works. So for his 2nd house perfection year, in 1960, he was released from the Army. The ascendant is sitting on the 2nd, so it's going to have a lot to do with his finances.
Plus, we got a lot of planets there too at the time, just kind of further emphasizing that.
Saturn's the Lord of the year, and that's also in there. So
yeah. And then we also look at the Sun, Mercury, and Venus, because they're in his natal 2nd. The Sun's also in the solar return 1st, natal 2nd. And where is Venus? Venus is in the 12th. Or natal 1st. Yeah. So the 2nd house, yeah.
The North Node is right on top of the MC, which means it's basically a career boost. It's like, ramping up. The North Node is ramping up. It's giving more. It's feeding. It's all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and we've got this moon in the solar return 5th, opposite that Jupiter in the natal 12th, but the solar return 11th. So yeah. So that was 2nd house. And I mean, Jupiter and moon don't really kind of come into it, but when it gets round to that sub period, it will be interesting. So this was, because he's born in January, we would start here on the 2nd house cusp. And so what's that? November. So January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. So that 12th house is significant at that time. And it's interesting that,
it's a sub period.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
And Moon rules the 8th house for other people's money. And Jupiter rules his 1st house and his 4th house of home. So nothing kind of striking like, oh my God, that means that he's going to do this or that. But I think the really striking thing here is that North Node on the MC, like you said, that North Node increases.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a 6th house perfection year. If you saw the Aries Ingress video that Linda and I had done, the 6th house has to do with the Navy. And the Potomac was a Navy vessel that was FDR's floating White House. And in 19, whenever this was, in Elvis's 6th house perfection year, he bought the Potomac, which is it just screams 6th house.
And you've got the ruler of the 6th house, which is Jupiter. No, it's not. It's Venus.
Venus.
Keep saying that tonight. It's Mercury retrograde. We keep doing this. But Venus is here in the 2nd house of the solar return, 3rd house of the natal chart, but it's with Saturn. And it's close to the natal Saturn. Saturn's associated with ships. So, you know, It's not something you would necessarily look at and say, oh, you're going to buy a ship or you're going to buy a boat, but it's just interesting. But I thought it was really interesting too that Mars was here and his 2nd, he's burning through money.
Exactly. It was a publicity stunt, and the soldier of Mars is literally right on Venus, to look at me. It was so signifying in my point of view.
Yeah, you've got Neptune here on Jupiter too, so that's a little bit interesting. That Neptune can all be about,
water,
glamour and illusion, and
water.
Well, yes, definitely water, and it's they're both in a water sign of Scorpio. So
I know with a lot of the boats, when you're renaming them, you kind of invoke Neptune to
okay. Nice.
to help the ship.
Well, we've got Pluto up here on the natal Neptune as well in the 10th. So not sure what that's about. I mean, did he refit it or did he?
No, I don't think he did anything. He only owned it for 2 weeks, but I think it was all, kind of refit when FDR had it. It was a White House. It was a living quarters.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that it was for sale, but yeah, got enough money, I suppose you can.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So in 1967, this is a 9th house perfection year. He married Priscilla. The Lord of the year is the sun. So you'd be looking at where, that would be that house would be prominent. Being a 2nd house, it's going to have to do with money.
Yeah.
Also in the 4th house is where your lineage comes from. So this is certainly
we've got the IC of the solar return here in the same house as the returning sun and the natal sun. It's in the 4th house, so home. He's starting a family. We've got the nodes over the 6th and 12th of the natal house, but it's in the solar return. It's happening in the 2nd and the 8th. So his money, which has got the south node, so it's decreasing, and the 8th house is increasing, joint finances and all the rest of it. Really interesting, because we were saying that when you've got Leo or Cancer as the house that's emphasized, you can look at the eclipses. And what was this? This was May 1st, 67.
Oh, that's right. You had said that the eclipse happened right at 18 degrees Taurus, which is exactly opposite his Jupiter.
Yeah. And that was on the 9th of May. So 8 days later. So yeah, it was actually, yeah, just after the eclipse. No, actually he got married between eclipses because there was a lunar eclipse on the 24th of April.
Yeah.
And then on the 9th of May, there was the solar eclipse. So yeah, just interesting that the eclipse kind of brought in this uh, Jupiter in the 12th house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Uranus up here close to the MC. I wonder if it was kind of a surprise. I wouldn't have thought so, but who knows?
No, but maybe the way they did it was shocking. I don't know.
Yeah.
And Jupiter's on that south node.
Yeah. So you've kind of got the nodes and Jupiter kind of being emphasized here, which is quite interesting. And Jupiter rules his first house and the house of home and family. So
yeah, very interesting when you actually see the charts actually working, and it's like, it is still is so cool to see that they work even not just once in somebody's life, but many times over in the same life.
Yeah. It's just looking at this Uranus again on the MC, but Saturn opposite is on the IC. So, there's that traditional settling down, getting married. But yeah, I'm not sure what that's about. Maybe there was maybe he didn't want to give up his freedom. Maybe he was happy with what was happening already. But yeah, looks like that Saturn won out.
Or it could have just been different. Uranus is known for orbiting on its side, so Uranus could just be different.
Well, yeah, I'm just thinking of Elvis impersonators marrying people these days. It's kind of become synonymous with marriages in some way, but yeah. Usual marriage. Yeah,
they do have people who are Elvis impersonators who are marrying people.
So yeah,
that is kind of cool. So we have a 10th house perfection year when Elvis is 33 years old. He and Priscilla gave birth to Lisa Marie, their daughter. The Lord of the Year is going to be Mercury, so you're going to look for any houses that have Mercury in it. Right there, as Linda is pointing out, it's going to play a role in his second house. Yeah, that is, children usually do play a role in your second house.
You can also look at the other houses that it rules. So it's like, 10th house, but it's also 7th house. So there could be something tied in with career and public reputation and your partner. So in this case, his partner gave birth and they're a family. So
yeah.
We've also got Neptune here in the 10th house. So we'll see where Neptune is in the solar return. It's here in the 12th. It doesn't seem to be doing anything super significant. And that Mercury doesn't seem to be doing anything super significant. It's in the 2nd house. This is the ascendant of the solar return is in the same sign and very close to the natal ascendant. So this is kind of like very similar to his natal chart. And when that happens, when you've got a solar return that's, very similar to your natal chart like that, it tends to be a significant year. So, and I mean, birth of your only child is significant, certainly.
And Venus in the 1st house.
Yeah, that's nice.
Welcoming a girl. And then I see the Mars at the bottom of the chart in the 3rd house, Mars on the Saturn, which is probably a little constricting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For his drive.
Mm-hmm. And you've got Moon here on Uranus in the 5th house. So I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's talking out of turn, but I've heard that he never looked at Priscilla the same again after she had Lisa Marie. Something about mothers, because there's that he's a mama's boy, very close to his mama, and yeah, apparently after she became a mother herself, didn't kind of see her as a sexual being. That's what I've heard. How true it is, I don't know.
I have no idea.
But
I have no idea. But Chiron is on the IC in the fourth house, which is it's the wounded healer on the IC, the house that, the lineage is. That's where your father, your father and your heritage comes from, your fourth house. So
yeah, makes me wonder, maybe though I would imagine this would kind of pop up. When was she born? February. So it was during the previous solar return that the actual pregnancy would have been formed. So it shouldn't have been a surprise.
No, it shouldn't have been a surprise.
But yeah, maybe something else surprised him. Maybe, how much he felt for her. I believe she was very much a daddy's girl. So
yes, yeah. I was just looking where the Pluto was, because that's, having a child in your life can be transformational.
Oh yes, very much so.
So, in 1972, Priscilla walked out on Elvis. So this would be, those tumultuous times. Second house perfection year is Saturn.
Yeah.
If we look at where Saturn is directly over, it's right on that, not directly over, but it's on the Chiron. It's very close to the descendant. It's where things are ending.
Yeah.
It shows
and I mean, it's in the seventh house of relationships and marriage, this is because he's a night chart, like Donna said earlier. Saturn is the most difficult planet for him. And his natal Saturn is quite good. It's in Aquarius, but Saturn in Gemini, I mean, it's not in detrimental fall, but I mean, it's not as strong as the natal promise. But yeah, it's in the seventh house of marriage. It's retrograde. It's also kind of debilitates it a little bit, close to the descendant. And because it is, second house, he's also got the Sun, Mercury, and Venus in the second house. So we want to have a look here. We've got Mercury in the first house. And again, he's got the same ascendant for the solar return as he does for his natal chart. So a significant year. You've got Mercury in there with Jupiter, amping things up. And Venus is here in the third. And
right. And so every screen that you're seeing, we are just taking the outside wheel is just reflective of the day he was born on his birthday. So yeah, and so it's just one day out of the year tells you all about what is going to be significant of that year. And even somebody walking out of your life is, if it's important to you, it's going to be on the chart somewhere.
And what can be really interesting, and we'll see it in one of the later charts, is sometimes you have things that are kind of like two planets might be, they're like 2 degrees away, but when they become exact, that can be when something really significant happens. Yeah.
So for the next slide, this is when the divorce was finalized. And you can see that Saturn is, still on the descendant. Even a year later, it's still there.
And it's retrograde again.
And it's retrograde again. It's not in good condition. So let's see, third house, Saturn again is the Lord of the year. Saturn is the only planet that has 2 signs that it rules back to back, because it rules Capricorn and Aquarius. So that's really the only time you're ever going to have a planet that's going to be, a time lord for 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
It's only because of that.
And for people that are born, with the sun in the lower part of the chart, born at night, Those are horrible years because
Yeah.
Saturn does tend to be horrible for night births, and
Yeah.
it's
Well,
Mars is horrible for day births. So yeah.
or their breakthrough years. If you have a good Saturn, I think Elvis does,
Yeah.
you can have some very productive years.
Mhm.
And well, his Saturn actually could be better if it were in the top part of the chart, but anyways, that's going into a lot of nitty-gritty details about Saturn. But the other things that are on the chart is the descendants on Neptune. It could be a little bit on right there at the top.
Yeah.
Could be telling.
Yeah. Interesting. It's a solar return descendants on the Neptune. Wonder what sort of publicity she was getting at that time. We've got the 10th house rising. He's possibly more in the public eye again because you've got the 10th house and the first house kind of both
Highlighted.
here. And the ascendant that year was for the solar return was Pisces. So we could also look at that. And that's the same as his 4th house of home and family. You've got North Node with the Sun, which is very interesting. So we're having eclipses over that 2nd and 8th house. South Node in the 8th house of joint finances.
So less of or taking away. That's what the South Node is indicative of.
And I mean, you've got the Sun here with not only the North Node, but Jupiter. I mean, that Jupiter is in Capricorn, so it's in the fall. So it's not a very strong Jupiter, but I mean, it still wants to expand. Yeah, I wonder if he kind of went out and, maybe being at home and, being newly married, young child, maybe he wasn't touring as much, perhaps. Maybe he went out and kind of did a bit more touring. I don't know if he'd finished doing his movies by this stage. Quite possibly. What's this, 73? Yeah, probably. Yeah. He was so young when he did all that. He had fame for such a young age, really.
He did. So, and do we have the next slide ready? Okay, so this was the year that he had his final concert, and the MC is right on his ascendant. That's what I'm looking at. It's a 7th house perfection year. Yeah. So we're going to be looking at Mercury. Mercury is co-present with Mars. Let's see what else. The part of fortune is on his MC up in the 8th house. The 8th house is that transformational house, money.
Well, it's also death too.
So, it is also death.
As I like to remind people.
Right. But if you were to see this as, what's happening for the year of the chart, you're going to be looking at that, and an astrologer probably shouldn't be telling you that you're going to die.
No. It's very easy to see things in retrospect. There's so many. Like at the very start, we had that slide with all the different possibilities. And like Donna said, this can be joint finances, this can be taxation, insurances, this can be loans and debts and all sorts of things. But, I thought I mentioned it because he died this year. So
he did. Yeah. And the ascendant's right on. Look at the ascendant's right on the Saturn there at the bottom of the chart.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Venus is on the moon. So an emotional year.
Yeah.
I would suspect.
I thought it was really interesting too, the descendant, because this is where the sun sinks below the horizon. So yes, the 8th house is associated with death. The 12th house can be a little bit sometimes. The 4th house can be the grave or the end of the manor, but also the 7th can also be associated with death. I mean, it's marriage and partners and all that as well. But it's because the sun sinks below the horizon, because this is where the sun starts at dawn and it goes up through these houses. Here's where it's highest, or here's where it's highest. And this is where it's sinking below the horizon. It's dark. So that can be associated with death too. And you've got the IC, which is the fourth house of the grave on that descendant. And that's not going to be for everybody, but it's just interesting that for this solar return, that was that.
Yeah. Pluto and Mars are so close. Mars is what, 12 degrees? And Pluto is at 14 degrees.
So what are we, 7th house years? So yeah. When did he die? He died in August. So
He
January,
did.
February, March, April, May, June, July, August. Oh, so he's in a 2nd house sub-period. So Saturn up here. But yeah, that will be very interesting, and we'll show you why in a minute. Oh, and also we've got Chiron here, which is in the 7th house, and we've got it on Uranus. So
very interesting.
And they're both opposite that part of fortune. So yeah, interesting that that natal part of fortune has Uranus opposite. So, you know, kind of lucky, unusual circumstances. I would imagine this is somebody that, you know, just meets the right person at the right time, kind of almost falls into luck and bad luck as well. But this Chiron here, yeah. I mean, let's face it, he died in an extremely unusual way. And this is the transits for his date of death. And here we have Pluto right on that Mars. So this is what, 7 months later from that natal, that solar return, when Pluto was 14 degrees Libra and sitting like 2 degrees away from his natal Mars. And this is at the time of death. You can see that's completed. And Pluto moves so slowly. I'm really surprised it moved that quickly.
In the 8 months.
Yeah, 7 or 8 months, yeah.
Yeah. But let's see, what else? Oh, Neptune is right on the ascendant.
Yeah.
Which should be a little bit telling of, you know.
Yeah, if I saw that, I'd kind of be telling the person, you know, probably not a good time to be indulging in drugs and that.
Yeah, to watch the drugs.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that Pluto Mars, that's brutal. And I mean, that's going to be hard in most charts. I mean, doesn't mean death, but certainly transformative and maybe in a violent way. That Sun opposite the Saturn. What did we say? 7th house Saturn. So where's Mercury? Mercury's here with the moon. It's sextiling that Jupiter in the 12th, the excess.
Yeah.
But as he was in that 2nd house sub-period, that brings in the Sun. So here's the Sun. Mercury, where's Mercury? With the moon. And Venus. So what's Venus doing? Venus in the 8th.
Yep.
Yeah. Interesting that that Chiron had moved on into the 6th house by then.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. And what is kind of really cool is you can even look at after death. So this is when Graceland was open to the public in 1982. What did we decide? I haven't put what year that was.
Oh, for the perfected house. See, 39, 45. He would have been 47 years old.
Yeah. It would have been a 12th house year for him.
Right. So that's ruled by Mars.
Mm-hmm. I see that I've actually done it for Memphis, Tennessee down here instead of his place of birth, but it will do. It's close, so we'll leave it as it is, but there might be some slow significations with the moon. I don't really think so. They're the same time zone, you said, didn't you?
They are the same time zone. In fact, you can easily drive from one to the other. I don't think they're that far, like maybe 5 hours between Memphis and Graceland.
But yeah, so 12th house. So Jupiter's going to be important, and because Jupiter's in the 12th house, and Mars, because Mars rules Scorpio.
Right.
So that one here, Mars here in the 5th and the 11th. So yeah,
almost right on top of his natal Mars, and this is 5 years later, and Mars has gone around that chart a couple times.
Yeah,
and still is back there. Saturn, the house of, or the planet of structure. I mean, you're opening up the house, you're transforming. It's no longer a residence. That's the Pluto on the part of fortune is right there. You're changing it from a residence to more of a museum type place. The Jupiter is is in the same house as Jupiter, expanding that. Yeah, there's a lot of
and then you've got the transiting part of fortune on the natal Jupiter.
Yes.
So yeah, interesting. Because we were saying the 12th can be house of death and that as well, but interesting. Yeah. And this 5th house here with the Mars open for, I suppose, to support the estate for his daughter.
Right.
Interesting that the descendant is on the ascendant, because Priscilla, I believe, was quite
instrumental in opening it.
Yeah. So she'd be important. Interesting too that the
South node is on Mercury. I saw that and I was like, huh.
Yeah. Strange. You would think it would be the North node, wouldn't you? Because that Mercury rules his 10th house.
Right, but Mercury is associated. I know Venus is the voice, but Mercury is musical as well.
Yes,
it has a lot of it's how you communicate, and he communicated through music. And there wasn't any music at Graceland.
Oh,
it's not there.
Oh,
so that's how that's how I would read that.
Yeah, and you got the MC on the Saturn.
Again, yeah, he's had that a couple of times. Hitting that Saturn. That was a very specific point for him, I think.
Yeah. And this is for when
still after his death. Yeah.
when she inherited, when she turned 25. So this is 11th house. So we want Mars because it's in the 11th, and we want Venus because Venus rules the 11th. We got Jupiter here, bearer of gifts.
Yeah, making everything expand. Venus is on the 3rd house, 3rd, 4th house, right there at the bottom.
Yeah, in the 4th house of heritage and that, because both Venus and Jupiter are the benefics, which means bringing good things. So yeah, it's interesting. Here's this 10th house for the solar return, Jupiter, right on his natal Mars.
Yeah. Very, very telling for
and we have all this emphasis. The solar return ascendant is in Capricorn, which is his 2nd natal house. Got all those things there. You got the 12th house rising. But yeah, Venus on that moon. So
Yeah, and you have the moon and Mars in the 8th house, you know, on
Interesting.
that.
Yeah.
So it's a very financial
Mm,
weighted house
yeah.
for him, even after death. So
And then you've got the I see here on that Uranus in the 5th house of children.
right. And the 4th house is your lineage, where you get your lineage and your hereditary comes from.
Mm, mm. And the 8th house is not only death, but inheritance. So,
Right.
mm,
Yeah, it's very interesting that these charts will even, you know, ring about after, somebody has already passed away. So that is annual perfections, and it's a technique that we can use, and it's only a snapshot of like your birthday. For a lot of times, astrologers or Hellenistic astrologers or the traditional astrologers who use these timing techniques will just take like a snapshot of just one day around your birthday, on your birthday, and that will give you a peek into what you're facing that year, which and hopefully you were able to understand our demonstration of annual perfections.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. And not everybody goes into that. And we didn't kind of go too deep into the monthly returns, but the monthly returns can be really super interesting. And looking to see when some of those aspects or connections in the solar return chart, when they actually perfect, can be quite startling. Or if you've got it here in the solar return and then it happens later on, yeah, that can be really quite interesting.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So Linda, where can people reach you at?
I'm at Scullywag Astrology, astrology.scullywag.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and Twitter and all sorts of places.
And you're
Yeah,
currently getting bookings for readings and
yeah.
for natal
And
chart?
yeah, I do like to do that when I do the look ahead. For people that are looking, I have a quick look at your natal chart, and if you want to explore that in more depth, we can do that. But what I usually do is look at the year ahead, have a look at your solar return and your Lord of the Year, and yeah, usually have a look at your monthly returns, see if anything kind of stands out as significant, like if it's like, oh, this is perfecting, what should that mean? So yeah.
Yes, and watching the eclipses as well,
Oh yeah, yeah, that can be really interesting,
where they fall.
particularly if you've got that Leo or Cancer as the house that's emphasized that year.
Exactly.
And what about you, Donna?
Well, you can get a hold of me through my website at donnabastrology.com. And I have a weekly blog for horoscopes there and what you can be expecting for, that week. And you can also go through there and book natal readings with me. I do horary as well.
Mhm.
And I as well do crystals. I work with crystals. And there's a whole
Are
lot of,
you doing electional at the moment too?
oh yeah, electional as well. I do that. Yeah. And the electional is just picking out a good day to open a business or launch a website or
Get
open a
married.
bank account. You can election when you're going to, go shopping. You really can, like if you're looking for something. So yeah, there's lots of things you can do that with. And yeah, so thank you. Please share, like, and comment. If you comment on the video cast, it helps us as well. So
Yeah,
thank you
if
very
you
much.
know what year you're in this year, that would be interesting.
I am in a 12th house perfection year, so please don't. I'm trying to stay away from everybody and go
So
find
Donna's in a
quiet
12th
corner.
house. I'm in an 8th house. So yes, we're still here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I've been looking forward to this year. I'm doing a lot of studying, and so Kind of what I'm
Yeah,
doing
well,
with it.
it's good for that retreat and shutting yourself away and yeah, doing work behind the
But I am
scenes.
happy to be here and doing these because I absolutely love talking about astrology. And if I can get more people to understand it and you know, and want to talk to me about it, you're just going to be the better for it because it's going to be so revealing and it's so eye-opening. And
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
thank
Bye.
you. Bye.